You know what else came out here in the last couple of days, Nick? Were over unders coming out of Vegas and Notre Dame at 9.5. How did that number hit you?
It's right on the money. I mean, you look at it, I think most people look and say, be a sizable underdog at Ohio State. Ohio State's offense is as good as there is in the country. Notre Dame should have a really good defense, but it's a different animal trying to go to Ohio Stadium on opening night, first regular season game for a head coach. It just so happens to be, oh, that's where you played college ball as well. So it's going to be as ridiculous as atmosphere as you're going to find. Especially for two teams that are so close in actual distance that they don't play each other outside of the Fiesta Bowl a couple of times here recently and a couple of home and homes in history. I mean, you're talking 6 times that teams from a couple hundred miles away have actually met for traditional powerhouses that both Ohio State and Notre Dame are. So that's going to be, I think most people look and say that's likely a loss. Then you have a few other very big games that stick out on the schedule. Clemson, the biggest home game of this year, first weekend in November. Regular season ends then as well. Thanksgiving weekend at USC. So those three are the ones that stick out, but there's a couple of tough ones in there as well. BYU should be a really solid team yet again, and that's the annual Shamrock Series game being played out in Las Vegas this year. That's no cakewalk. That one could jump up and get you. So those are the four that really stick out. And it turns up being, can Notre Dame go 2-2 against that, or can they, or better, or is it one where they likely lose 3 of those? I think where a lot of Notre Dame fans, there were frustrations with Brian Kelly of he had taken Notre Dame as far as it could possibly go, and that's under Brian Kelly. I think that's a fair discussion point or a fair point to be made. What Brian Kelly did great was go look at his resume, go look at his win losses since really 2018. He won every game he was supposed to win. He went into those games against the Virginia Techs and some of the middle tier ACC teams, and it might not have been the prettiest of things. It might not have been anything that you frame and celebrate over, but at the end of the day, it was a victory. And he didn't get upset by teams you're supposed to get upset to. Can Marcus Freeman do that? Can a new head coach do that in his first year? I think is a big time question that goes into this. And so I think that 9.5 makes plenty of sense. Even if you go 2-1, you win the home game against Clemson or you win the road game against USC, is BYU going to be one of those teams that gets you? Is there going to be another one of those games as well along the way? A trip to North Carolina? Is there going to be one of those that jumps up and gets a first-year head coach or a rookie head coach that maybe a guy in that position like Kelly or that has a bunch more experience would be able to avoid? So I think that's a 9.5 right there. I tend to think when I went through it myself, I think that Notre Dame loses to Ohio State. Off the top of my head, I think they split USC and Clemson, and I think that there's one of those games in there, whatever it might be, that some weird hiccup happens, and I'm not going to put it out on Marcus Freeman and think that yep, he's going to be a failure or unsuccessful. I would lean very slightly the under, but 9.5 seems perfect spot for it for me.
Yeah, I am right there with you in terms of the lean, but it's not something that I would advise anyone to play by any stretch of the imagination because even coming out of the gate against Ohio State, and you know, Nick, we do a lot of live shows here, receive a lot of fan feedback. It seems as though, obviously, on the Ohio State side, they are pure, like, we're going to win this game by 4 touchdowns. The Notre Dame faithful are more in the, hey, we've got a shot. We got a good team. We're going to go in there. I think it's going to be a really good game. We've got a good shot. Then you've got your standard college football fan that roots for other teams that I think they also think it's a given that Ohio State's going to win. Ohio State had a similar matchup against Oregon from a point spread standpoint, a similar matchup as a 14 to 15 point favorite. They lost the game at home. I know a different set of circumstances. CJ Stroud has a remarkable year under his belt as opposed to being a first year, second game starter and so forth. But still, Ohio State's going to be putting together a very talented defense, but a first audition, first go at it live under Jim Knowles, new defensive coordinator, defense that wasn't good last year. Again, plenty of talent, not good though on the field. So I'm not discounting this Notre Dame team coming in and possibly upsetting Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't think it's egregious to think. Like when I saw what was it, on College Game Day, the day of the NFL draft, when they had both Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman there. And Marcus Freeman was kind of joking, like, okay, yeah, 13, make it 14. And then later at an alumni event that he spoke at, he's talking, yeah, I want no one in the country believing in us. I want our team to be the only people in the country that believe we have a chance. Make the point spread 17, make it 20, make it 21. I don't care. As long as the people in my room believe we're going to win, we're going to go out there and we're going to put on one heck of a show and make it compelling as heck, not just for part of the first half, but deep into that thing and maybe pull an upset. And that's the mindset that really you kind of need with it. I look at this Ohio State game, and just the difference in quarterback play. And I know we touched on that a little bit of what bringing in Carr is going to mean for Notre Dame. Tyler Buckner was a pretty big, one of the bigger recruits quarterback wise Notre Dame that Brian Kelly did bring in. And I don't want to say problem because it's not his fault. He dealt with just pretty much everything that could go wrong in terms of getting game reps in high school going wrong. Sophomore year, suffered an ACL injury. Junior year, puts up ridiculous numbers, almost wins a state championship in California as a quarterback. Senior year, goes out and COVID happens and he enrolls early, so he doesn't have a senior year of high school. Last year, played in a kind of a specialty role where I think it was 68% of the time he was on the field, it was a run play called by Notre Dame. Now he's a multiverse quarterback, and that's part of his strengths is his ability to move and his ability to run. But it wasn't really a fair shot at running the actual offense of everything kind of being out there playbook-wise for him. So it being his first start and its first really game in control of an offense, not his first reps necessarily, and it coming at Ohio State, that probably does Notre Dame no favors either. So I'm a little bit hesitant to give Notre Dame too great a chances just because of, okay, Ohio State's defense, it has question marks. It has issues that are there seemingly from a year ago. But Notre Dame's offense, I think, it's going to be a work in progress as the year goes on.